The restraints were too tight, cutting into Captain Elara Voss's wrists with every vibration of the Empire's prison shuttle. She didn't flinch. The metal cuffs were meant to dehumanize, to remind her she was no longer in control, but she'd given that up willingly. The two armored guards flanking her kept glancing at her face, expecting some flash of fear or desperation. She gave them nothing. You'd think the humans would stop trying after losing 3 colonies, one muttered, helmet voice filter garbling his smugness. Especially sending in her alone, the other added. Was this supposed to be a joke or a last gasp? Elara stared forward, past the bulkhead, as though seeing something through the walls. Her breathing was even. Her posture relaxed, except for the subtle tension in her fingers. No one noticed. When the shuttle docked, the ramp lowered with a hiss of hydraulics, revealing the stark gray expanse of Outpost S9. The facility was dug into the side of a frozen asteroid, a black site where the Galactic Empire stored its most problematic threats, those too dangerous for public courts but too valuable to erase. The guards shoved her forward. She walked without resistance, her boots silent on the steel floor. Surveillance drones hovered above, scanning her face and body, relaying data to a central control node. Alarms didn't go off, but a red flag blinked briefly on a junior officer's monitor. He leaned in. Captain Elara Voss. Human, female, combat designation Echo 5, her. His brow furrowed. Access to the full file was restricted. He tapped the request key, knowing it might take hours. He looked toward the arriving group and then dismissed the thought. Just another rebel. Inside the command deck, Commander Threx stood with hands behind his back, eyes locked on the monitor feed. Tall, reptilian, and razor-voiced, Threx commanded with the confidence of a man who believed in fear more than discipline. He observed Elara like a biologist might watch a cornered animal, curious, cold, ultimately superior. Bring her to cell block theta. No audience, no press. Let's see how long she stays quiet, he said. The guards complied, escorting her through a series of biometric doors until they reached a darkened corridor lined with narrow cells. Inmate eyes followed her, some curious, some predatory. They whispered among themselves. Most had never seen a human soldier in person, let alone one of the infamous Earthborn infiltrators. They shoved her into a cell and sealed the door. She stood there, alone, in a cold cube of silence and white light. No bed, no chair, just a steel floor and 4 walls. Minutes passed. From the cell beside her, a grizzled voice spoke. You one of them Echo ghosts they talk about? Heard your kind got wiped 2 cycles ago. Elara didn't answer. The voice chuckled. Or maybe you're just bait. They do that now. Send someone soft-faced in so the rest of us make noise. Test the system. Still no reply. Hours later, 2 guards arrived with a third figure, a wiry inmate with cybernetic implants and a half-crazed look in his eyes. The door opened. New bunkmate, one guard said. Don't break this one too fast. The man stepped in, sneering. Heard you're some kind of ghost. Let's see how dead you really are. He lunged. What happened next was fast, almost too fast for the cell's internal cameras to catch. A twist of the wrist, a knee to the gut, and the man was folded on the ground gasping, one implant sparking from his neck. Elara returned to her upright stance, breathing measured. The guard stared. Didn't see that coming, one muttered. Threx reviewed the footage minutes later and narrowed his eyes. Trained reflexes. Lethal control. That wasn't luck. Still, he waved it off. All prisoners have teeth. Doesn't mean they can bite through armor. Elsewhere in the facility, the junior officer's access request was approved. A heavily redacted dossier slid onto his screen. Elara's image stared back at him, uniformed, younger, eyes identical. Project Echo, classified. Tier 1 asset. Omega level containment suggested. Engagement protocol, suppress, not terminate. He swallowed. Commander, you might want to see this. The message went ignored. In her cell, Elara sat cross-legged now, eyes closed. She could feel the hum of the station's energy grid through the walls, the thrum of containment fields, the rotations of surveillance cycles. Her mind catalogued every detail. She hadn't come here to escape. Not yet. She came to be found. And soon, they'd all understand what that meant. The cell lights dimmed to a blood-tinged hue as the shift cycle changed, but Alara didn't move. She sat perfectly still, like a shadow sculpted from flesh, as the facility hummed around her. When the door slid open with a metallic hiss, she raised her head slowly. Commander Threx entered, flanked by 2 guards, each with stun rifles half-raised, not out of caution, but habit. "I prefer to speak with my prisoners before they are fully broken," Threx said, voice low and cutting. "Understand who I'm dealing with. Sometimes, it spares us both time." Ilara's gaze drifted over him like smoke. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Threx laughed, dry and sharp. "You're a failed soldier from a failed planet. A relic of a dying resistance. You think cryptic words will buy you dignity." "Not dignity," she replied. "Time." Threx's eyes narrowed. "Time for what?" She didn't answer. That was enough to irritate him. He motioned to the guards. "Activate the neural scan. Let's see what makes you tick." They strapped a small device to her temple. The interface beeped, then whirred, probing her synaptic patterns. The guard holding the scanner frowned. "Interference. Readings are unstable. High theta activity, that's not normal." Threx leaned forward. "You're hiding something." Ilara's voice was a whisper, almost amused. "Your machines can't read what they weren't built to understand." The scanner emitted a sharp chirp, then died. Frustrated, Threx turned away. "Return her to isolation. No food, no light. We'll try again when she's more cooperative." As the door shut behind them, Ilara exhaled through her nose. Her heartbeat elevated subtly, not from fear but anticipation. She was waiting for a signal, not external, but internal. Something was unfolding in her body, slow and precise, like a program awakening. In the control room, the junior officer stared at the decrypted file he'd pried open using his clearance override. The more he read, the colder he felt. Project Echo wasn't a military unit, it was an initiative buried so deep in Terran archives it barely existed in official history. Designed in response to the Empire's first planetary purge, Project Echo had produced less than a dozen operatives. All of them presumed dead after the Breach War. And yet Ilara Voss was alive. The file detailed neurosynthetic augmentation, experimental memory segmentation, and something called the sleeper sequence, a failsafe that would activate under extreme duress. The words on the final page chilled him. "Do not attempt to interrogate or psychologically provoke Echo-class operatives. Activation may result in facility-wide compromise." He sent a direct message to Threx. No reply. Inside her cell, Ilara's mind entered a new rhythm. The sleeper code wasn't something she remembered activating. It was never hers to control. It lived inside her, waiting. And now, under deprivation and stress, the signal had begun. The change wasn't painful. It was subtle, a sharpening of focus, a shift in sensory priority. The walls around her no longer seemed solid, but like layers to be navigated. She could hear footsteps 2 levels above. The air felt denser, more informative. Patterns emerged in the way the lights blinked, in the pulse of cooling fans, in the way sound curved around corners. The prison wasn't a structure. It was a system. And she had begun syncing with it. Back in the admin deck, Threx stood in front of a star map, arms folded. "She's bluffing," he muttered. Earth always overestimated its strength. All this mystique, they thought fear could win wars. The junior officer finally entered, pale and stiff. "Sir, we need to talk. Now." Threx waved him off. "Not now. Sir, she's not a prisoner. She's a weapon. She's not even fully awake." Threx turned, expression darkening. "What are you talking about?" The officer handed over a datapad. "Read the Omega Protocol." Threx's eyes scanned the file. He read it twice. "She's the one from Deneb's collapse," the officer whispered. The one who redirected an orbital bombardment using her own squad's implants as relays. We thought it was a myth. A red alert chimed before Threx could respond. Power fluctuations. Containment fields cycling irregularly. AI subroutines reporting external signal noise, except there was no signal. Inside her cell, Elara stood, hands by her sides. Her breathing deepened. The light flickered in sync with her pulse. A quiet smile touched her lips. The sleeper was awake. The lights across Outpost S9 dimmed, not in a programmed shift, but with a slow, uncommanded fade. On the monitors, security feeds stuttered, scrambled, then went dark. Backup systems activated, but even those flickered like candlelight in a storm. The central AI issued a system-wide anomaly warning. No source. No breach. No cause. Inside her cell, Elara's eyes opened. The walls whispered to her now. Data flowed in silence, streams of electromagnetic chatter that once passed beneath her notice. Her implant, dormant for years, had reached full integration. She moved. The cuffs she still wore hissed and fell away, deconstructed from the inside, molecular latches undone by microbursts of encoded energy she pulsed from her skin. The cell door remained shut, but the lock clicked, then opened with the soft suggestion of obedience. She stepped out into the corridor. No alarms. No drones. Across the station, guards scrambled, shouting half-formed commands. The internal sensors reported every door sealed, every cell locked, but Elara was no longer part of the system's assumptions. She was inside its blind spot now. A squad of 4 rounded the corner, rifles raised. Stop! She did. They aimed. Before any could fire, she moved, graceful, surgical. A twist, a strike, a sidestep. In 12 seconds, all 4 lay unconscious, one still clutching his weapon in a lifeless grip. No unnecessary force. No noise. Elara took the lead guard's data bracelet and keyed into the command network. Her implant translated the garbled code into usable interface. She walked calmly toward the central deck. In the command center, Threx paced like a caged predator. His fingers drummed on the armrest of his chair as he snapped orders at panicked subordinates. Shut down the internal power grid. Isolate Block Theta from the mainframe. It's not working, sir, an officer stammered. She's bypassed the architecture. How? Threx roared. She doesn't have clearance. She doesn't need it, the junior officer said softly, his voice trembling. She's overriding the system by syncing with it. Like she's part of it. Threx froze. He remembered something buried deep in the report. Not just enhanced physiology. Not just tactical mastery. Neural resonance integration. She is the breach, he whispered. As he spoke, the doors to the control room slid open. Elara stepped through, alone. No weapon. No armor. Her eyes scanned the room with measured calculation. Don't move, one officer shouted, raising his sidearm. She ignored him. Commander Threx, she said, voice smooth. You should have read the rest of the file. Threx stood tall, defiant. You think this is a victory? Killing us won't change anything. The Empire stretches across galaxies. You're one woman. Elara tilted her head. I know exactly how far your reach goes. But so do the people you've silenced. She touched the nearest terminal. The lights surged. Data erupted across every screen, prisoner records, classified war orders, experimental protocols, proof of Empire war crimes. All broadcasting live on rebel frequencies. Off-world colonies. Underground cells. Hidden networks. All watching. This station was never my prison, she said. It was my signal tower. On screen, cell blocks across the asteroid unlocked. Prisoners poured out, some confused, others roaring in rage. Among them were 5 marked Echo survivors, eyes flashing as their implants synced with hers. The Empire hadn't killed them. It had buried them. You have no idea what you've reignited, Threx said, backing away. I wasn't sent here, Elara replied. I chose to come. She stepped aside, letting her freed operatives storm the deck. Thrax drew his blade, more ceremonial than useful. She disarmed him with a glance and a move too fast to follow. "I'm not here to kill you," she said as he slumped to the floor. "I'm here to show you what fear feels like when it's earned." She turned, leaving him breathing, trembling, broken. Behind her, the facility descended into chaos, not destruction, but transformation. The prisoners weren't fleeing. They were organizing, coordinating. Years of scattered resistance, now united under one signal. As she reached the shuttle bay, one of the guards she'd left alive earlier limped forward. "What are you?" he asked, voice barely a whisper. She paused at the threshold. "I'm human," she said. "You just forgot what that meant." Then she vanished into the stars. The stars outside the shuttle blurred into streaks as Alara watched the viewport, arms folded, expression unreadable. Around her, the surviving Echo operatives manned the vessel in silence, each one a ghost brought back from myth. The rebel outposts had picked up their signal within minutes of broadcast. Dozens of resistance cells responded, not just with awe, but with coordination. A network was forming in real time, not from command but from instinct, survival finally laced with strategy. Alara hadn't spoken much since they escaped. The others respected her quiet, knowing it wasn't hesitation but focus. Her mind was already several steps ahead, cataloging who would react next, who in the Empire would see her as a threat to be erased, and who would recognize her for what she'd become, a symbol too dangerous to ignore. Behind her, Dren, the oldest of the surviving Echoes, stepped forward. His face was marked with old burns, and his voice rasped like sand on steel. "They'll come hard. No more hiding. You know that." She nodded. "Good. We don't hide anymore." Dren studied her a moment. "Back there, when you broadcast the prison data, that wasn't just tactics. That was personal." Her eyes stayed on the stars. "They erased our names, our families, our memories, turned us into weapons and threw us away. If we let them keep doing that, we're not survivors. We're debris." Dren was quiet for a moment. "You think people will follow us? Even now?" She turned to him then, her gaze calm but unwavering. "They already are." On the fringes of Imperial space, the broadcast sparked panic. Dozens of shadow courts convened overnight, debating whether to officially acknowledge the breach or cover it with manufactured disaster. Fleet Command ordered an immediate trace on the origin node. Intelligence officers dissected every second of the transmission, but the message was clear: Alara Voss was no longer a rogue agent. She was a rally point. And worse, she wasn't alone. Commander Threx, stripped of rank and under heavy interrogation, offered no meaningful resistance. He simply repeated the same phrase over and over. "She let us take her." The Empire's high strategist, a thin, silver-eyed alien named Kale Vor, watched the decrypted footage from S9 in silence. He saw something his subordinates had missed, not the violence, not the data breach, but the precision. Alara had hit exactly the right nodes. She hadn't just exposed the prison. She'd exposed how the Empire kept control. It wasn't physical chains. It was the lie of inevitability. He closed the file. "She's not a threat to one installation," he said. "She's a threat to the narrative." Back on the shuttle, Alara stepped into the command alcove, keying open a private line. A single transmission was waiting. A young woman's voice filled the room, fragmented, but unmistakably human. "This is Solstice Base. We got your signal. We have survivors. We have weapons. We thought we were alone." Alara answered quietly. "You're not." The feed crackled, then cleared. "What do we do?" Alara didn't hesitate. "We organize. We hit them where they don't expect. We take back what they thought was forgotten." Her voice was steady, but inside, a weight shifted. Not guilt. Not fear. Something older. A promise she'd made to herself in the blackest cell of S9, that if she ever got out, she wouldn't just survive. She'd make sure no one was ever caged again for what they were born to protect. Outside, the stars bent as the shuttle pierced toward deep space. The war hadn't ended. It had only begun. But this time, it wouldn't be fought from shadows. This time, the ghosts were coming home.